I drive my car up to the lake as if there's someone to awake. I haven't been to bed for days, I live in a twilight haze. And I set my heart to the setting sun, and I hope that no one else has done it. And the drinks are never far, open up the bar. I miss you every single day. I wait until I start your way. I hate the way I'm straying into these happy days. I love the way your fingers fall.
Cool. Hey, Ollie, welcome back to the podcast. And 2023, I was just contacting people. The podcast is hopefully going on a little radio station, a little local radio station. So I'm just kind of contacting a bunch of people and inviting them back on and seeing what's changed over the last year. Now, what has been happening over the last year, Ollie? Like, you're doing Fixinc. I hate to be the one to break it to you, but I went online, looked at your website, and it's not working. Nah, it is working. But you've just got a front page saying, coming February.
Yeah. I was thinking last night, how's it been a year since we last spoke? But it wasn't. It was only like 10 months ago.
Oh, right.
It's crazy. I was like, how's it only been 10 months? So Fixinc is going through a bit of a pivot. So like the last time we spoke, we were talking a lot about marketing, digital marketing, website development, stuff like that. And that was certainly the passion, and we were doing really well at that, I think. We had some pretty awesome clients. Likes of Waitangi Treaty Grounds was one of the projects we were working on, which was like a game changer for my little agency. Really cool experience. But in the back of my mind we're probably talking close to 5 or 6 years. I've always known about trying to get into like a niche and trying to dominate a market that no one else is servicing.
Oh, yeah.
And I don't know if you remember last time I was here, I was doing quite a lot of work in the resilience space, business resilience.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and so what I've known is for the time I've been in that industry, there's just never been anyone really looking after that audience and that industry in terms of marketing and promotion and these consultants or these small consultancies trying to sell their services. And but I was kind of tied at the time to a contract that kind of made it conflicting if I went and helped
I see.
all their competitors, basically.
Yeah.
So I spent probably like 2 years trying to figure out, well, how do I get over that? I'm no longer with them now, so it means I can do it. But regardless of that, I started working with a couple of the guys I was with, my marketing agency, and trying to bounce ideas in terms of what we could do. So we basically just got these 2 offerings now, which I'm sure I can go into more detail about. But the idea is we've pivoted the offering from just being generic digital marketing to just servicing the resilience space. And what I've been really fortunate, I've kind of landed on my feet here a bit because, like getting clients is hard, but getting the expertise I think is even harder because these people are like, 30-year minimum experience, like senior guys. They're doctors, they're ex-military, whatever. Some of them have been in government. So having them have enough faith and trust to come and join my little agency to do this with me almost seemed like a bit of a pipe dream, but it has happened. And my dad is probably the key driver of that, being in the industry himself. So yeah, we're probably still in the early days of this, but
So how would you say, what's your unique kind of selling proposition from your point of view? Like, what do you do that the other guys aren't doing differently? Although you say that there's not a hell of a lot out there anyway.
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly, you know, loads of agencies that are available for these consultants and stuff like that. I think we're going big on this, and I don't like to do anything half-assed anyway, or small, and so my vision here is that we're going to build the biggest ecosystem of resilient services in the world. Some people might say, well, how are you going to do that? Because you'd be competing with the likes of, you know, the Big Four, the Deloittes, PwCs. They offer resilience, but it's not particularly as streamlined or concentrated.
Is it too one-dimensional, what they are offering, or is it too just sort of surface?
I think what they do is, because when you look at something like business continuity, organisations can make that quite broad and say, well, you know, we need to get audited, we need to have like our accounts in order, and we need to know like where's our funds going to lie if shit hits the fan.
Yeah.
And so you'll get a firm like Deloitte coming in to audit you and help you figure that out, and then they'll tack on business continuity on the end.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, no, you actually need the professionals who really understand business resilience and crisis management, stuff like that. So, yeah, I mean, there are agencies out there that can help, and there are businesses out there that can help. Our big take on this is I've always been a big fan of getting rid of competition, or the idea of competition. Now, if you look at you guys, like, there's other cafes in the city. You're not just going to be the best cafe in the city. I mean, you might, and people might mark you down as that, but people are still going to go to other cafes, right?
100%.
And so I kind of look at it that way, particularly in business to business, is everyone's just trying to compete with each other, and then they just screw up the service they're offering their clients. So my take on this is we're going to have all of these different consultancies come together to help each other out through our system, our ecosystem that we're building, and support each other, particularly when they haven't got the resources to run a job or anything like that. And we're doing that over what we're calling an advisory board. So every region around the world will have 6 consultants that come together to help businesses get through an event, basically.
Wow. That is huge, Ollie. That is a massive undertaking and goal. I mean, I suppose within these areas and stuff, of course, there's experts, and there's people who are potentially going to be involved one way or another, and so you're looking at a way of kind of providing an organised approach towards an event. I don't know.
Yeah. So there's 2 angles we're going to take. The first being I want to build a directory. So for guys like yourself, right, you could have, I mean, look at Auckland, had the floods. If that happened in Christchurch, similar to Auckland, but the infrastructure just wouldn't handle it. And, you know, there's the council will try their best, but they've not particularly done well on other areas before, so it's not their forte.
Could you do any work with them?
Oh, big time. Well, this Auckland mayor, who just like screwed up big time. I felt for the guy because you know, everyone's going like, oh, he screwed up and he didn't know how to like, you know, talk to the public. And I was sitting there thinking, he isn't the first. Like, there's a lot of people that are not good at doing this because that's not what they signed up for. You know, so
often it's what they choose to admit that maybe how they're perceived later on. It's not perhaps what they did, but man, the ones that fall do it in a spectacular. And so, but it's people like that we want to help, and so this advisory board concept is that it's almost like insurance. So you basically pay a premium, and then we're available 24/7, 365, and the people you get are all experts in their discipline. So crisis management, business continuity, crisis communications is a big one, PR, stuff like that.
I think, Ollie, this is the business continuity and crisis. It's the thing that people don't think about until it turns up on their doorstep. And it's like they're probably caught a wee bit short-handed.
Yeah, big time. That's the selling point, though. You know, it's And we've been talking about that, like what happens if someone signs up and then immediately activates, because there is a timeline we're giving them as a promise, so 4 hours to get the people involved. That's probably why in the early days we'll advertise it to premium businesses, the top 500 who kind of have it as part of their I guess their offering or their promises to their stakeholders, their investors and stuff like that. Those guys are a bit easier to sell to, but my vision one day is that it should be accessible to everyone, that expertise, because I've certainly seen it save not just businesses but lives as well, when you get these people assisting a council who have got lives they're having to look after. So it's intense, and don't really know if it's going to work yet, but
could you give us an example of when you guys might be needed, like a certain situation?
So I think other than the Auckland flooding, so particularly with the Auckland Council, that would have been a big one. That would have been we don't know the script, or we don't know how to calm people down when this isn't our fault, but they're looking for someone for guidance, right? And we'd just gone through different prime ministers, so they were like, well, we need someone to blame here. We don't know Hipkins enough yet, so who's next in line? This random mayor, basically. So that's a perfect example of where Fixinc would say, well, we'll send in our consultants virtually for most of the time as well, like we don't need to be there in person, and actually walk you through what the event is and how you might respond. So that's probably a bit of a lower key one. But then you've got, you look at COVID, or you look at natural disasters, like what's happened in Turkey. So with Turkey, we're probably unlikely to get any calls from anyone in Turkey, because they've got like immediate, way worse stuff to put up with right now.
Right.
However, there are businesses in Europe who probably have connections to other suppliers in Turkey who now can't even get hold of those people anymore. So that is an immediate emergency for them, or a crisis. So they'd be like, well, what are we? All of our supplies gone now. We can't get hold of them.
So you guys are basically jumping on board and just helping the business out. And
pretty much, yeah.
We'll take care of that.
Yeah, it's less about physically taking care of it as well, though, which is important, because they've still got responsibility to get back on the feet. But what often happens is, with leadership in particular, you get like the CEO. Unfortunately, the CEO's job is usually to run and look after all of this. But it doesn't mean to say that that's their expertise, or they're even any good at it.
No.
You look at Optus in Australia. It had massive cyber attack. It was like a quarter of all of Australians lost their data. And, some could argue that they just didn't handle that very well, and particularly around how they acknowledged the attack like it wasn't their fault. That's another great example of, like, we would come in and sit down with them and say, look, you can still talk about it this way and go this approach, but this is what we recommend. And the great thing about our board is that it's 6 people who all have to have their professional input, and then there's a facilitator that basically averages that out, because there could be someone in there that disagrees with everyone else, but we have to take the average of the expertise. So it is really that confidence in, okay, what does Fixinc think about this? They've said we should just hold off. Okay, it's not really what we're going to do, but we're paying them, they're experts. Could be the approach they take.
What happens when the best case, the best path isn't the most respected path? And because, if we're talking politics, it's notorious. Often what's best for the people isn't considered, and there are other factors at play. How is it? I suppose you guys are all good because you're just offering advice and things, but I don't know, do you guys take that into consideration? Because I feel like maybe that's a prime example of businesses going through adversity and not having the resilience and the infrastructure in place to deal with it, and they cope in a bad way. I'm thinking it's sort of an idea. It sort of happens, and like there's a nefarious kind of thing. Like they knew that they were going to do this all along. They were going to take this wrong path or something, and they use a sort of a disaster as an opportunity to maybe exploit or something like this.
And
because
that's where 90% of our sales come from.
Yeah,
it's from clients going, shit, we did need this.
Yeah,
and now we see the value in it. They either see the value because they activated and they used our services or similar, or they had an event, they didn't have anything in place. And it's like insurance. You don't need it until you actually need it paid out. And you're like, that's why I was paying those premiums every month.
Yeah. There's so much talk in politics and stuff, especially in America, about the various sort of things that pull the politicians in different directions. And I think in a crisis or in a war, there's all these kind of lobby groups, and I don't know. I mean, in all reality, they do a pretty good job of.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean,
holding it all together, and at least sort of because sometimes there's some massive scandals which seem to be controlled really well.
Well, I've
sometimes it's almost like they need to kind of hit the ground, like they need to it needs to sort of explode a little bit. It would be more beneficial for everyone if things kind of fell apart a little bit, maybe. Like we saw behind the veil of secrecy.
We saw that these people were vulnerable. I mean, I don't know. I really find this reaction to Cinder Ardern leaving super interesting for multiple reasons. The biggest one that really hit me, I was talking to a friend about it, was like, man, if tourists knew what Kiwis said to her online, they'd be like, oh, well, they're not as nice as we thought they were. It really shocked me a bit,
Hey, Ollie, I'm just going to switch on. Or, Milton, could I get you to switch on the air conditioning? Sorry.
It's steaming up.
Yeah, that's right.
But that aside...
not that one, just the top one. Yep, sweet.
That aside, I was like, well, it's kind of... It doesn't surprise me, because shit, she went through a lot. Like when you really list it out. And I think Melinda Gates, actually, of all people, I don't know if she still has that surname now, but she put a post up about her, which I thought was huge. She's one of the most successful women in the world. She was like, this woman has been through natural disasters, biggest terrorism attack we've ever had, COVID, blah, blah, blah. And so it's like, man, because I'm not particularly her biggest fan, but at the same time, I was like, yeah, actually, she has been through probably more than any other prime minister in New Zealand's done. And that's the same around the world, right? Like, even America have had some pretty. I mean, every year they seem to have like all sorts of shit going down, and you think, how do these people manage that? But ultimately, it comes down to. You were talking about like what are the kind of like the defining factors, and what we've seen is two things: reputational and financial. That's all that leaders are trying to juggle. If I lose money here, can I still keep my fans? Because you can't really do both. It's very hard to do both. If you've had a cyber attack and you've just lost all your data, you've just had a reputational impact. But if you're not going to buy the data back, then your financials are okay, So that's usually like what clients ask for help on.
It's remarkable, isn't it? I've heard Jordan Peterson talking about reputation as well, and how it's really important to the individual. On an individual level, how we, like our reputation's massive. And often people, when we're going through life, sort of priorities change, and we get to the when we're young, we're trying to make money or whatever. It changes from then, and when we're older, we're kind of thinking, well, what does our family think of us? What does our community kind of think of us and stuff? But the reputation, as far as business goes, that's huge.
And it's so fragile. That's what's crazy about it.
And in the same, like Jacinda, like the relationship is fragile. Often I feel it can kind of skew it in a particular kind of. It can sort of almost taint it, that fragility. It's kind of, there's something not natural about it, so we need to kind of make out that we almost overcompensate for its vulnerabilities.
Yeah, big time. Yeah, I think it's one of those things where, particularly in the business world or business to business world, your reputation is really what people are buying. They almost don't really care about your service anymore. It's who's the person who's coming with it, and you see it in politics. Like that's really all they're working on is that reputation. I mean, obviously that's what gets them those votes, and but politics exists in business as well, in commerce, and you see. I'm currently still kind of going through this experience, but last year. A few of us, and particularly my dad, went through an experience where his reputation was unfairly put on the line through decades of growing it and growing an amazing contact base, and that really shook me up. It made me super angry, but then also very aware of, again, that vulnerability of it and the fragile nature of your reputation. And to see my own dad at risk there was like, well, we're all subject to this. Yeah.
It's kind of like, what's sacred? And everything seems to be out there on the table. And
you used the word nefarious before. I don't think anything's sacred when it comes to that sort of thing. People are just brutal.
Yep. It's kind of human nature. And
there's a local cafe a couple of years ago. They're a good cafe, but they got a bad reputation for a number of things went on, and they went through a real difficult time. So like the reputation, people just didn't go there anymore. Very good cafe, people didn't go there anymore because of the reputation. That's like a perfect example.
And almost along the lines of the cancel culture type of thing.
Totally. They jump in, and then there's sort of a mob mentality. But it was also justified. There was a reason why their reputation had been sullied. It wasn't all just made up.
No.
Yeah, and then you have to... I mean, I'm super interested in this sort of stuff because it's ultimately what resilience is about. It's being able to sometimes admit that you screwed up as well. And, you do look at... I look at brands like... I don't know, Apple, for example, biggest company in the world. And I just finished reading a book about Tim Cook and how he'd gone to like China to go and see what was really going on around how they built their products.
Right.
And there's this village over in the west of China that is essentially just there because of the factory that builds the glass and a chip for iPhones.
Yeah.
And there's 400,000 people that live in this village. They've got supermarkets, bars, hotels. But if Apple moved out of there, went to another supplier, 400,000 people would be out of work and nowhere to live. Yeah. And it's like that responsibility is so huge. But everyone, or not everyone, but there is typically this like, why is Apple still in China? Get out of there. There's slave labour and blah, blah, blah. And Tim tries to explain like, yeah, we recognise that. We can't just leave, though. We have a responsibility now. We made a mistake probably going there in the first place, but that's happened. And we're sorry about the way it was approached, because, I mean, in the early days, Apple were just like, what's the cheapest way of doing this? But now they have got that kind of moral responsibility. And it's really interesting to me to see how they've really actually tried to give back to that community and help what has probably affected a lot of people's lives in the first place, but try and make it a positive thing. And that to me is just such hard work. But there's no getting out of it,
And it can only be led by taking the right action and slowly working on it. There's really, you can't pretend you're like thinking ethically or morally. You've got to be doing the action. Yeah. And slowly that seeps in, and people will change their viewpoint on those things.
Yeah.
Like, we're communal creatures. We need that stuff.
That's
Otherwise,
right.
If we're like just adversarially battling away at each other and smashing each other down, it's just a miserable existence. So it's like, it comes back to a sense of community, like a local, national, or global level or whatever. It's just a better place to live.
I think so, Milton. I think that's a good point. However, we're all at different stages, and like you say, Apple moved in there, and it was sort of focused on. It was at a certain stage and a certain mindset, and that has now changed. So businesses, people, communities, we're always kind of changing within that. There's various sort of people at different stages and levels, but yeah,
it's interesting how you said Google moved in, and originally it's just about the money, but now there's, they've been helping out there's 400,000 people and creating a sense of community, and it's like, why was there that ethical change?
Yeah, I think ultimately, and I would assume Tim.
Tim sounds like a nice guy the way you're describing him.
Yeah, I mean the book itself is. I forget the author. He's done loads of books on successful entrepreneurs, and he's I can't believe I've forgotten his name. It'll come to me.
Like Ryan Halliday, or I think we talked about him last time.
Yeah,
maybe.
we talked about him last time. Yeah,
someone else.
This guy's just really good at not being on the side of the person he's writing about.
Oh yeah.
He basically writes about the true nature of this person, so you can make that decision.
Yeah.
There's good and bad sides to Tim, obviously, as there is for everyone. But yeah, I think what really surprised me about reading that was like the pressure and then that ultimate responsibility that company has, because it's just so big.
Yeah.
But how that is actually shared between all of us anyway. We don't all have $1 trillion business, but we've all still got that responsibility,
and we buy their products.
Yeah.
The big thing is I don't know if you know much about the cobalt being mined in the Congo and how that is in so many of our things. And a lot of these organisations and businesses are sort of saying, no, it's not in our chain. There's some people who are saying, no, it is. It's in there. It makes up this percentage. It all comes from this place. And they've gone in there and written books and sort of exposed it, I guess. It's pretty full on. But I wonder if you can kind of hack a business's sort of mindset and sort of give them a quantum leap forward and say, hey, look, people do matter. Kind of seems silly, right?
Yeah. But it does. But I've as recently as like the last 6 months, I've been part of businesses that haven't done that, and then they're failing, and they're like, why are we losing money every day? Well, because you've just forgotten that people are involved. The last big experience I had in that respect, the I guess the boss, if you like, she kind of moved away from having people front and center, which has always been my thing, particularly from a marketing standpoint. And this is what we're talking about, right? Is that that human connection. If I see a face on a website and it's smiling and it's nice, it could be a stock image, but it's still another human being who is happy to be there. And this particular business was really moving away from like, we don't want our staff on our website. I'm like, why do you not want your staff on your website? What's wrong with your staff? I know them; they're nice people. Like these, and your clients know them. It's like, what is the process of doing it? Well, if they leave, it's a bad look. Like, but then you take them off of the website and you keep the other person. Like, it just baffled my mind that was even a conversation.
Yeah. So that's kind of like a maturity thing, right? We don't want businesses that are kind of stuck in this adolescent kind of maturity level, that are just perhaps a little bit self-centered and just going out there for itself. We want one to be perhaps a little bit more aware. That's full on. I mean, we were talking before about how Pilgrim's going and stuff like that, and just on a mega small level. But I mean, although it has been difficult constantly throughout our whole existence, and doesn't seem to be any time leading up anytime soon. As far as on a local level, just outside the roadworks and all the different things that we've got coming in the future, that maybe a recession on a larger scale and stuff. But just looking at it from a different perspective. And we have a customer upstairs who I told you about, Daniel, and he owns a business called Time Zone One. And for us, Pilgrim is kind of like just an opportunity to meet people. It's a platform which, while it may not be profitable, it serves all these other purposes. And those purposes are sometimes more valuable than maybe the amount of money we're losing, kind of thing, if you know what I mean.
Oh, 100%.
Sorry, I'm not very eloquent when it comes to explaining these concepts, but
I think, because I've known about you guys for a long time, even before I did the first podcast, and we'd go to Smash Palace, and occasionally one of you would be there as well, and everyone would just be, it's the guys from Pilgrim. And I'd be like, what's Pilgrim? But that almost didn't matter, because it was like, it's those guys, like it's almost less about the venue and more about the people, and particularly in hospitality, but I think that's for all businesses. I really believe that, like, when you get rid of people, you're risking that trust and that connection with your audience, because they're now just connecting with like a brand. Businesses,
which is very shallow.
It's shallow. It's two-dimensional. It's like, we've got a really amazing logo, and we're just super proud of our values and all that sort of stuff. I mean, I personally hate business values, because you've just generalized 100 employees. Because trust me, they don't all share those values.
That's right.
They'll say they do, so that you don't fire them. But I want to know individual values of the people I might work with, and that's why I'm going to spend my money here. And I think that's where, if businesses are worried or wondering where they're losing money, it's because they're not making those connections from people to people. They're just relying on the signs out the front of the door or whatever. So, and it's really, really bad at the moment, I think, in the business commercial world, where everyone's got to wear suits and look super smart, and you're not allowed to put any humor on your social posts. If you're a law firm, we don't joke about this sort of stuff, and it's like, but if you do, trust me, more people will be like they'll loosen up around you.
That's fascinating. So you're dealing with how culture influences people, and I suppose, on the other hand, some of the people that own the businesses are saying, well, the people aren't the business, this is the business here, but inevitably it is the people. And if they're not allowed to be people, if they're not allowed to express themselves, if there's like if there's a sort of a vibe of sort of fear or censorship or something, self-censorship, who knows? It's just going to have this random flow-on effect.
It's just a massively complex thing to be dealing with.
It is, but I can definitely see how the culture can kind of play into that in a real negative way, and give people... so that's where your value comes in, because you've got another perspective, and you're offering it to people who are kind of right in the middle of it. I think like with the first website concept that we're working on around the directory, the idea is to really push the expertise that's available around the world, and have businesses be able to connect with them without it being that formal, to be honest. One of the biggest things that you'll see is you'll get quite a big, well-known brand or company somewhere in the world who recognise that they need external help, whether that's crisis management or whatever, but they can't be seen asking for that help, because their investors will be like, hold on, is there something wrong? Should we know about this? And it's like, no, it's just part of basic resilience or business operations. So our kind of goal in that respect is like, well, let's build a site where it doesn't feel like you are asking for help. And it doesn't feel, there's even an option of reaching out to these consultants anonymously until you're comfortable that these are the right people to be working with. And we're only able to do that through the power of technology that we're building, and that is
to me, it's like one of the really important things here is I just want to break down that barrier of this professionalism that actually is just cloaking human to human contact a bit, you know, and really like helping. It's not helping people just get shit done.
Yeah.
Because they're all trying to be super professional and like, no, we've got this. We're just coming to you for a little bit of help.
There's so much energy tied up in, you know, creating that facade that could be used for better things.
Oh, totally. Yeah. Money, resource, people, just to look the part.
Yep.
Which is, it's fine. And look, don't get me wrong. Like sometimes that is really necessary. It gets the investors in and stuff like that. But ultimately, when a crisis happens, it's not AI, it's not computers, it's people that are getting through all of this. And I've been in crisis situations, I've seen them, and the ties come off, the suit jackets are left in the meeting rooms. You know, like everyone just looks like shit, and they're just dealing with it together. And you go, this is what you're actually like. You know, I remember there's a guy, I won't say what company it was, but trust me, very global, huge business. And we went to a business development meeting with him, and he turned up in a Hawaiian shirt and like what they called cargo pants, and so, like, this is multi-billion-dollar business. Everyone else is in suits, and he just comes in and he's like, right guys, super excited, what you got, go. And we were just like, whoa, why is he not wearing a suit? And he was like, because it's 30 degrees outside, I don't want to wear a suit. And that really was quite interesting, and it made me think, well, why aren't we all doing that? It'd be good to wear Hawaiian shirts.
Stressful. You'd be thinking, was this some kind of reverse psychology? Shall I be relaxed? Shall I not relax?
He really threw me a bit. I was not prepared for that. Yeah,
it's good not to judge people by the cover or whatever.
Yeah, 100%.
You know, someone who looks all sharp could be taking you for a ride, and someone who's looks like just cargo pants or whatever, they're really clued up.
Yeah,
hot shot. One of our customers, he comes and he sort of gets dressed like that sometimes.
Yeah,
and he's a very smart man, and he's one of the top dogs in his world.
Yeah,
but you wouldn't know it, but he's so good he can just chill out and wear loafers or whatever. He gets the job done. That's
all that matters, right? It's just exactly. I'm not paying someone to wear a suit. I'm paying for their brain basically, and who they are as a person. And that's just kind of. It might not work, but that's kind of what we're looking to help push. Like, we're never going to be the people who, control this, but I really think we can, as a business, we can just nudge that conversation a little bit and have these, particularly the older generation in the business resilience world. It's primarily older white males who run the show, and not all of them, but a vast majority of them are, pretty old school.
Yep.
And quite recently, actually, I had, through the grapevine, someone say about me, seems a bit inexperienced to be doing this. And I was like, I definitely am. You're 100% correct. That's why I'm trying to get you people to come and be part of this business, because you're the experienced one. But it wasn't about... To me, my experience isn't helping businesses get through a crisis. That's what the consultants will do.
Yeah.
But my experience is the technology that runs that show.
Yeah.
And I truly believe that there's few other people in this industry that have the same experience that I do to be able to build something like that.
Yeah.
And so that's the mission a little bit. But
and you're also pulling together a team, right?
Yeah.
So
big time. Yeah. And that's actually what's in our favour is the people who are already keen to do this are friends. We've worked with them before. The co-director's my dad, which is a good start. We're building this together, which like with everything that happened last year and what it was sudden, and all of a sudden we were like, well, what should we do? What's our business venture going to be? And it was one of the greatest things that's ever happened to me, personally as well as professionally, because now I could work with my dad, but also I could run this concept and this idea and actually just go for it. And it all just came down to like, let's just call up all our mates that we used to work with and see what they're up to and see if they're keen on this. And all of them are like, yeah, I'm in. Like, whatever you guys do, I don't even care. Like, it'd just be cool to hang out and do this work again.
Do you think there's more of an awareness of like that concept where growth comes through adversity, and is that more? Do people understand that in the business community? Like, when things are just too good and it's all laid out for you and it's just sweet, like businesses need challenges as well. Like, Pilgrim, for example, it has just been challenge after challenge after challenge, but we wouldn't have had an opportunity to develop our personality and our character if it wasn't for all of those things. And it's always that case of going through it's kind of hell. Looking back at it is the best thing that ever happened. Like, is there an awareness of that in the business community?
I think to a certain extent, I think people are aware of it, but few people know how to practice it.
Yeah.
And because, we do have a limit, and, going back to Cinderella, and like she ran out of fuel a little bit there. And I love that because I think we all have. Yeah. But what we've seen, particularly with businesses that get hit hard multiple times, what really comes back to it, the core of it all, is your culture able to deal with this multiple times and not necessarily see it as a negative thing?
Yeah.
And it's easy to say, okay, that we've had COVID, how unlucky are we, everyone's going through it, blah 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 blah. But if you don't start seeing the positive side and trying to find like opportunities pretty soon after an event like that, you will just be hung up on these negative kind of impacts that keep coming in, and you forget to keep an eye out for those opportunities. And I think from what I've seen, particularly from really big businesses that are making millions turnover every year, where they ultimately go wrong is everything just seems negative. Yeah, it's like, oh, this person's left now. Yeah, they've gone to a competitor, or we're losing clients for some reason we don't know why it is. Well, that's an opportunity now. Then, like, your service offering isn't relevant anymore, apparently, or your brand is not doing well, or your good people are leaving. Why is that? So now you've got an opportunity to sit back and really try and get into the science of it and exactly. redevelop your business potentially. Yeah,
it's the classic old wisdom from the Art of War, Sun Tzu, and all that sort of thing. It's just timeless. Got to be a bit, it's pretty hard, like on a personal or organisational level, to remember that.
Yeah. So on the whole, Fixinc, will you be responding to crisis or whatever? Is there an opportunity for people to approach Fixinc before the thing happens, right? Just on a general thing. Have you thought about? I was just running through my head. I'm just relating this all back to a personal level, and quite often one that I love to think about is there was a TV show called Brat Camp where they'd grab brats from around the world. And
I was probably on that.
Yeah, these adolescent kids that were just like total brats, and they'd take them out, they'd drop them in the Nevada desert, and they'd push them to their limit. So they'd have this simulation, or it wasn't, that they created, put them in an environment where, they would either get broken or shit would start popping out, and then it could be kind of dealt with. Do you guys thinking of offering some kind of service that might, artificially kind of create pressure, or I don't know, you could hire me and Milton to just turn up at a business one day and
building,
cause a bit of chaos.
I mean, jokes aside, that's like one of the most requested things is scenario exercise. That's essentially what it is. So with those kids, they're putting them through controlled but dramatic scenarios. to make them reconsider who they are as people and how they respond to things. And yeah, we totally. I mean, so Fixinc wouldn't necessarily do that as a business because we are the kind of mediators or the middle ground.
Yeah.
So we have our consultants who would do that. My dad, as an example, is very experienced in doing that. So he would do it as our consultancy arm of the business. But it's 100% something we always encourage businesses to do. I mean, I would even say for you guys, like, you know, one of my favorite analogies that my dad talks about, which I even think I mentioned it last time I was here, but I always like to talk about this because if you really want to know what true business resilience is, one example is to think about your premises. So for you guys, it's this cafe, right? So let's say there's a flood. What's the thing that's now affected your business with a flood?
The shop. Yeah. So it's just going to come in. It's going to taint everything and make it dirty. And
so what can't customers now do?
Well, they can't come into the building.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, so that's a flood.
Yeah.
What if there's a fire?
Same thing. Yeah.
What if there's an earthquake?
Yep, same thing.
What if this street gets locked down? You
see it's probably going to happen.
So it's like, So what happens is really, even like the biggest businesses are like, right, so we've got $2 million this year for business continuity plans. Here's a massive list of all the disasters that could happen to us in the next 12 months. And we're like, yeah, cool, we'll chuck that away because it doesn't matter. All that matters in that scenario is you can't get onto your premises anymore.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how or what it is, really. It's the fact that your number one issue is you can't get onto your premises to run your business. And so with scenario exercises, what we try and do is the clients will always come with, our biggest risk is cyber attack. And we're like, cool, yeah. So what we're going to talk about today is that the business over the road is being held hostage. It's got nothing to do with you. You're not even like being held hostage, but the police have cordoned off the whole street.
Yeah.
And now someone's died, so this street's closed for the next week. You know, stuff like that. And that's where it really throws leaders because they think they've got it all covered. And then, you know, you try and do an exercise where it's like, pretty disruptive. And so, back to your point, I think that's a really valuable thing to do for businesses, and we're certainly going to push it.
Would it be fair to say some business leaders just think they can kind of throw money at a problem and it will go away?
Yeah, and they probably have to a certain extent. But ultimately it just comes down to how they handle the situation personally. And, personal resilience is huge. And we've seen that, examples of that since COVID, more than probably we've ever seen, at least since maybe like the war. And so, you can chuck as much money as you want, and it will get you so far. But if your CEO's a dick and like he or she doesn't know how to communicate to the clients, then it's game over anyway.
Well, I mean, if you chuck the money in the right direction,
to someone like us.
Yeah, true.
But I mean, we've had people where not particularly with this current business, but I've certainly been in scenarios where we've like given them loads of solid advice and it's followed their plans, and they've gone like, no, we're not doing that. I'm like, oh, okay, and then they don't do it, and it either is okay or shit hits fan. But ultimately, you're kind of like, why did you not take our advice? And it just comes down to the personal opinion of that person dealing with it at the time.
Yeah, that's real fascinating. It does sound like a real maturity thing, and being able to impart like the wisdom of being mature, like for a business, like to be responsible and stuff like that, and to act in a.
You're still dealing with individual politics and all that. We're Machiavellian and narcissistic and all that sort of stuff. How do you can't break through those barriers.
Yeah. It's really. Again, that's why I'm fascinated by it, because, you know, it ultimately doesn't come down to the business. It comes down to people running it.
Who we are as humans. Yeah.
And just like when you sit in a room with them and you try and tell them, like, look, you've approached this wrong. And they're like, you can't tell me that. Do you know who I am? And it's like, well, it doesn't matter who you are. Who you are in this situation wasn't good. And
well, I know who you are. That's what I'm telling you. You stuffed it up, mate.
Yeah.
Or, you know.
Yeah.
And but you know, on the other side of the spectrum, you see leaders just do phenomenal work and really inspiring stuff, and then you wonder, like, where's that coming from? And you ask them, and they never say it's from their own experience. It's from their community around them. They always say it's about their team. They always say, you know, oh no, I didn't really do anything. This is my response team or my leadership team, and then you go and speak to them, and they all say the same about their peers. You know, and that's ultimately, if you want to know how to run a good business, just get everyone to say that, basically, or not get them to say it, but if they're saying that, that's a good sign you're on the right track. But it's rare, unfortunately.
Yeah. So that top down kind of thing, influence.
Yeah,
that's cool. That's freaking cool, man. It's heaps to think about, but I mean, it's fascinating, and it is complex.
You know, it goes back to family and all sorts of those different personalities how they developed. I love your relationship with your father. Man, it's so wonderful.
Yeah, I'm pretty lucky, and I'm an only child, so pretty close with my parents, and I've worked with my dad for probably like 7.5 years now, I'd say. But this is the first time we've really gone out alone together. You know, I already had Fixinc. It was already an agency. But with this pivot, it was like super comforting to know I wasn't going to do it on my own. And I guess the kind of umbrella of this whole conversation here is like when my dad went out on his own recently, well, you know, with me, but carried on with his I guess it's consulting to a sense, but basically just kind of like not being part of a business. He was just Brad on his own, right? And what really surprised me was quite old contacts getting hold of him again and being like, what are you up to these days? Can you come and help us? And it was just this light bulb moment. It's like, they never paid for the brand. They paid for Brad. And they found him again, and he's available, and they're paying him again. They were always just paying for Brad. Yeah. And so to have someone like that as part of something I'm working on, just going back to those kind of like personal values, must just align, because that's what I love about business, is people buying people, not the product or service.
Yeah.
And so, working with him has just been like, it's very educational for me because of the work he does, but also we just love trying to kill it together, you know, just like, I mean, he's in his late 50s, and we'll be in our office and I'll chuck on like some loud, you know, Tool or Nothing But Thieves or Foo Fighters or something, and I'd like turn around and he'll just be like nodding there, working away, and we're just having such a good time doing it, and I think that ultimately is what's going to hopefully make this successful, is we're already on this good vibe.
Yeah, I mean, if it exists within your business, you can kind of lead by example. That's really important, and then there's a chance that you'll attract the people and businesses that you'll attract seeking help will potentially be like-minded, or at least they'll be open to it. You know, I think, you know, there's that. Yeah, I think we do tend to attract that type of thing. Like, I know the customers we attract are, you know, I think, if someone comes in here maybe for a couple of weeks and we don't quite click, maybe they'll go somewhere else. But eventually you kind of attract the people that are sort of somewhat similar to yourself. Yeah,
you just have to give them a smile, Dave.
Oh, right.
That's where you're going wrong, mate.
Yeah, mate.
That was my number one lesson for 2022, is try to smile more. Which, you know.
Well, how did it work out?
I still need to practice it. It makes a massive difference.
Yeah, mate.
It's, I don't know. But I've talked to a guy the other day at a meeting, and that came up. Like, what was your biggest lesson from 2022? And he was like, being. He didn't say being able to pivot, but along those lines, this kind of idea that you've got to be able to move and stuff like that, be flexible.
Agile, yeah.
Yeah, well, and I just was like, my one's smile.
Well, I mean, we're often like so like unconsciously stressed and uptight, and a smile sort of breaks through that. You know, that's the mastery of humour. Humour is so powerful.
Yeah, and that's how you started the conversation, Ollie. It was just like, man, you see a stock image of someone smiling, it is magic.
Yeah. It's one of my core rules, I suppose, particularly when I hire someone, is to understand their emotional intelligence.
Yes.
And to really make sure they've got it. Which, surprisingly, not as many people do. Until you really, and there's certain questions you can ask to get into that. But have just not every. You got your introverts, your ambiverts, and your extroverts. Right, and it's okay to be those sorts of people.
What was the middle one? The
ambivert.
Oh, ambivert. Oh, yeah.
Which
I
think
both ways sort of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's where I fall in a little bit. Like, I'm happy to stand on a stage and talk to people, but afterwards I'm like exhausted and need to go and be in a room by myself for a week.
Where extrovert gets energy and like amped up.
Yeah, they go to parties and it fuels them, and I'm like, nah.
Yeah, mate.
Like, I saw the beer fest, and I'm big fan of beer, and I was running around Hagley, and I was like, I might go to that this afternoon, and I saw all the people, and I'm like, no, it's not happening. I can't be around that many people today. But anyway, so you've got these different personality types, but understanding whether those people have got the emotional intelligence that come with that is really what I think makes a difference, particularly with who you work with. And I can tell that you guys have already got it, and that's why you're gelling so well. But then that's also why customers will keep coming back, because they probably don't even know as well. That's the thing it's not something you go, they've got emotional intelligence.
No,
it just feels warm when you speak to people. And that's where, again, looping back to like, if businesses that are worried about like, why are our customers not talking to us anymore? Have a look at whether that's part of it, because it's certainly helped us. To put that kind of front and centre, making sure the people that are talking to our clients are emotionally intelligent. They have got empathy and confidence as well, and they're not just kind of like shying away. And even an introvert can have that as well. It's pretty important. But
introverts are real good at shying away. But I mean, some introverts are like really important. Got some really important qualities, like sit back and consider stuff, but they've just got to speak it out. Yeah.
I'm working with a guy at the moment who I would say it's fair to say he's an introvert. Like, he's pretty. He'll probably be like, "No, I'm not," but I think he.
It's hard to admit to.
Exactly.
I'm an introvert. It's like, shit.
Because it can be seen as a negative thing as well, particularly to extroverts, and but as you say, I mean, with this particular guy, he's a genius, and if he was loud and went to parties or did whatever and wanted to be front and centre, the same work output wouldn't exist. And I think his ability to kind of lock himself away and be really comfortable with that helps him produce work that, is ultimately what I pay for, and what I look to have around us. And to try and change someone's personality type to make more sales, for example, it's just going to ruin that opportunity I've got with him in the first place.
Yeah, you're valuing the right thing. You're placing value on the correct thing that's gonna be fruitful. Yeah. Any other way, it's sooner or later it's going to come into conflict with who we are as people. Like, ultimately,
it's all overall being introverts, extroverts, ambiverts, and creating a warm feeling. But when it comes down to business, you do have to know what you're doing and get the feet on the ground and get the job done.
Yeah, that's true.
And there's a point where we're not worried about warm feelings. We need to get a solution here.
Yeah, and I guess,
well, that also is a part of emotional intelligence, I think. That's still
knowing
in
when
there.
to switch over.
Yeah, and kind of being mature about it. Like, the job needs to be done. Let's do it, and not getting hung up on feeling angry or about that we have to do the job.
Well, that's the professionalism.
Yes.
It's like, look, man,
Yep.
this isn't personal or anything like that. You don't need to feel hurt about this, but you need to step your game up, and that's not acceptable, and this is what needs to be done. So
it reminds me of I'm really into the Formula One, the Grand Prix, and the thing that actually draws me to that is the businesses that run those teams, and you know, having like last year the big news was Daniel Ricciardo being sacked from McLaren, and it was like, you know, he's the nicest guy on the grid, he's got this beautiful big smile, he's just so happy, and everyone was like, why are you getting rid of him? Because he hasn't scored a single point, you know. He's pretty shit this year, to be honest. But the way the team handled it, and particularly the boss, it was like, look, you know what our culture is, and you know what our mission is, and unfortunately you're not aligning to that, and you just felt this across the board as like mutual agreement on it. Like, yeah, fair enough. That we all knew what we were signing up for. Yeah. And I really do think the lessons you can learn from these teams is just, I mean, it's ridiculous. The stuff they go through. They're 24/7 operations, but the leadership there is, some of them aren't great. I mean, you know, Ferrari last year was an example of what not to do. And then you've got teams that aren't winning who are still amazing leaders, and you know, dealing with these precious drivers who don't want to get sacked, but ultimately, you know, but how do you even talk to these people about that? They're getting paid so much money, and you're like, look, this is not working out.
It's phenomenal. But at the end of the day, if you got no wins for the last 2 or 3 years, well, why are you here?
And that's why I love studying it a little bit, because it's the same in business, right? Like, ultimately, we are all trying to get along, but and we can be friends and all that sort of stuff, but we want this business to succeed, and if you're not putting in those hard yards in the early days, and particularly for startups, man, I mean, you know, we all know it's hard, but I think one of the hardest things is essentially the early days of grueling through it, and then having that person who was there from the beginning drop off the radar a little bit and not put in the same effort, and then having to have that conversation of, look, this isn't working out. And it's a horrible horrible conversation to have, but it's necessary sometimes.
People just go through cycles as individuals, you know, as organisations go through those cycles as well. You know, sometimes you're up and sometimes you're down. And if you drop down too long and you've got lots of other stuff going on, you're going to start to perform poorly.
And I think it's important to note that it's not... I saw something on LinkedIn recently, someone saying that they applied for a job and they didn't get it, but the letter they received back from the company that told them your application has been unsuccessful was kind of one of positivity. It was like, you know, you are of value and you are awesome at certain things, but just, you know, you just didn't quite fit in this role. But undoubtedly there's a place for you somewhere else, and you're going to be awesome there, kind of thing. And I think that can be a little, you know, that's kind of a good thing.
It's amazing totally that someone did that, right? But then, but you were saying, so this person shared that letter. I mean, so this probably wasn't their plan, but they have subsequently promoted their business in a positive light by not hiring someone. Which is insane, really, right? We've gone against what this person wanted, and it ended out positive.
Well, it wasn't sappy, and it wasn't sort of... I didn't communicate it probably the best, but I mean...
It sounded very thoughtful and real.
It just felt like a mature way to deal with it, and a nice way to receive it for the person. It's up to them how they want to receive it, of course. They could still, rip it up and... it could affect them.
It comes down to your own value set as well. It's like...
but I think it's leading by example. It's leading. This is how I'd like to be treated, so that's how I'm going to treat you guys.
Like with your own value set, you sometimes you have to realise, man, I was inadequate. They were actually right. I was no good, and so it's sort of a personal learning thing, and it's about personal confidence. And working out how can I, adapt and change, and that's that whole learning and growing thing again.
But the thing is, inadequacy is everywhere when you look for it, but none of us are inadequate. This is going to sound real cheesy, man.
This
None of us are going to...
This is not another quote, is it, Dave?
No, this is my quote. You can quote me on this one. But none of us are being... This is massive. This is like a whole block of cheese. But none of us are inadequate at being ourselves, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of like we can't be too hard on ourselves.
That's not a bad one, man. Is it your
I just came up with it then.
I like it. I'm going to quote that on my LinkedIn.
Sweet.
Yeah, I'll do a big, like, colourful...
I'll share it.
Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah, but you're not wrong. I mean, we are way too harsh on ourselves.
Yeah.
Way too harsh. And
Yeah.
and do you know what often is the case is no one else agrees with you there. Like, you wouldn't talk to people how you talk to yourself.
Yeah.
That's the thing to remember.
Yeah, mate,
So
100%.
why are we doing that to ourselves?
But
And
where does it even come from? It's nuts, eh?
it's probably some sort of
The devil.
the devil, or someone will say like it's social media influence, but I don't know. I think maybe it's like a survival thing almost, you know.
Yeah.
That jumped into my head as well.
Yeah.
Like if I'm harsh on myself, I'll run faster.
Well, if you're the leader, there's kind of a target on your back.
Yeah.
So maybe if we keep ourselves just below the leader with some kind of natural form of keeping
I
ourselves
think
down.
there's always a target on your back. Even the last person's probably got the biggest target on the back. You know, that's the one that gets dragged down by the alligator or whatever.
Yeah, but it's an interesting one because that's where particularly since COVID, people are maybe starting to loosen up on themselves a bit and being like, yeah, that was hard, and particularly business owners are kind of finally starting to publicly admit that they're just getting by.
I do it on a personal level. If I'm going melt you, if I can your shit, or like real negative, like harsh criticism, I literally talk to myself like I'm talking to a friend. It's like, oh, go easy on yourself. Don't worry about it. It's not that important. Sort it out next time, sort of thing. And, that's a process. But it's way better, man. A bit of self-love.
Yeah,
it works, and those negative thinking sort of drops away.
Yeah, there's so many things every single day, every hour that's targeting us to make us feel like we're only just getting by, So particularly when you do something like run a business by yourself, it's you don't have that safety net that an employee thinks that they do, but it's certainly pressure that even the best people in the world, or they look like they're the best, they're still going through the same thing.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And there's the sort of the balance with the performance. You want this performance on one hand, but it does create a bit of a gulf on the other hand, which is the pressure and stuff. And I know there's awesome techniques and tools and all these different things and training, and people talk about it all the time, ways that we can kind of improve ourselves. But there's a slight negative.
Sometimes the best tools, techniques, and the stuff you work out yourself.
Yeah.
That's what I found anyway.
Yeah, for sure.
You can like go to books and read this and read that, and that's all relevant. But sometimes I'll work out something for myself, and it just really clicks.
Yeah, so it's to do with the time and the stage that you're in.
Yeah,
and,
exactly. No one's going to understand my like, complex psychology and all that.
Yeah.
So sure, there's generalizations, but there's an essence, and sometimes I'll come up with something, it just feels just right for me, and it just clicks. It probably wouldn't work for anybody else.
Well, life itself is the greatest teacher, right? So it's kind of, you can ignore it. You can ignore that teacher, but
like what do you mean? Like life?
Well, rather than just sort of reading a book on how to live your life,
I see what
actually
you mean.
kind of going out there and living your
absolutely.
life, and experiencing it through a series of failure and adversity and stuff like that. That's what. But I think what we are in our culture and stuff, I think, maybe it's businesses, maybe they have kind of personality disorders where they haven't developed the proper maturity that they're supposed to. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, like, to your point about books, books are really important, I find. I read a lot, and the thing to remember is, they're 20, 30, 40 bucks, and it's a lifetime of knowledge on 300-400 pages, but it is just from that one person.
Yeah.
And so you're not that person, you're not that author, and things are going to be different in your world.
Yeah.
But I think, as you're saying, it's like I can take all of these snippets and put them into my life and see if they fit and stuff like that. I mean, for me personally, last year I got back into running again, and it just completely changed how I look at life.
Awesome.
You know, going out for 2-3 hours in the hills and like nothing else matters apart from getting back.
Yeah.
You know, and you just have this like, it's good to just be away from all the noise. And it is really, honestly, the mental health game for me now is just it's on point because of running.
Yeah.
So do you listen to music, or would you go sort of...
Sometimes. I mean, Nike has a really good app, like a training program, where they have like some, you know, a coach, a professional coach, talking to you while you're running, giving you tips and stuff. But then in between those moments of like, right, now you're going to do this pace or whatever, they'll talk about letting go of the week or the day or you know, they have the guy from Headspace on there a few times, and he's like, look, if you're running in the morning right now, I can guarantee you that you're either going to have a great day, an okay day, or a shit day. But it doesn't matter because you're running right now, and I need you to forget about all of that.
Yeah, that's
and then
cool.
when it comes up, regardless of the experience, just remember you went for that run this morning and you felt really good. And it's just all this kind of like, not everyone's going to go out and run, but you can find your own thing to do, which is ultimately going to reset you and have you just remember that no one can take that away from you. You know, there's those stories of prisoners of war who they lost everything apart from their mind. They could never take their mind, and that's ultimately for me what running is like, I've had a really bad week or month, and you know, particularly last year got really hard for me, and so going out for runs was like, this is just my moment. I don't have connection on my phone, don't have my phone or whatever, and I just honestly I couldn't think of anything better to do now. And it doesn't have to be running. It can be, you know,
of course.
It could even just be like playing the PlayStation, you know, which some people would see as being unhealthy, but I really don't think it is. It's a moment for you to just be on your own and reset a little bit. And you know, as long as it's not drugs, probably shouldn't be doing that on your own to reset. Everything else apart from that.
Yeah. Well, I mean, caffeine's a drug.
Yeah.
I'm enjoying that right now. No, don't get me wrong. I love books as well. I mean, my aim this year is to read a book a week.
Nice.
That's
a lot of books.
I was getting addicted to YouTube.
Yeah.
I'll just watch it for 4 hours in a row.
Yeah.
And like a lot of it's just like drivel, but some stuff is really good on YouTube, and I'll learn some stuff as well.
Yeah.
So I get a few gems out of, you know, a few hours like gawking at that. But books are better, man. It's just got more substance in it. It just feels way better to be reading books. And I'm learning a lot more out of books as well. Yeah. So don't get me wrong, books are really awesome. But, you know, we've got that innate ability to have our own answers as well. So it's getting that combination. You know, which comes maybe in like a intuitive thought of some kind. Yeah. Something like that. Not like a intellectually trying to grind it out, because it doesn't work. It's sort of like a feeling that will come up in my body or something like that. Yeah. And it's often like quite still and quite subtle. But yeah, those are very good thoughts.
Yeah, I think concepts like that, they always have their extremes, right? Or a truth. You know, you can take it to extremes, and you know, it's just going to break it.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We were talking about essentialism last time, weren't we?
Yeah,
we
were. Yeah, that's.
Hey, I've got the menu here for you, Ollie.
Thanks, mate.
There you go.
Beautiful. Yeah, essentialism is so important to me.
Were you saying you were going to read that once a year?
Yeah, I've probably read it 6 times now.
Oh, wow.
I listened to it twice on...
That actually motivates me to
cool. Yeah, that's right.
Read it once, maybe.
I can lend it to you if you want.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I read Treasure Island quite often.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice. I mean,
maybe
it's a book.
Yeah. Maybe the same themes or something is happening in the same way.
Robert Louis Stevenson, and it was such a great book, Treasure Island. So
yeah.
I can understand why.
Yeah, essentialism is just... Yeah, it's the number one book, but it's also, the concept of it is very important. And
I think it scares me.
Yeah? What scares you?
The idea that you should be focused and just concentrate on one thing. I don't even know if there's what the book is about, but I'm gathering more crap, and I feel like I'm going to spread myself too thinly over this next year, and I don't want to read the book.
So his number one rule, which to me was so important that I got it tattooed on me, is less but better.
Yeah,
and
that's cool, mate.
yeah.
It just was like, that if I just live by that, everything will be pretty good.
Do you know of a book that's the opposite?
More but less? More but worse.
Oh, more but worse.
Less,
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, which is essentially, what it is. You can try and do loads
true.
and
Same thing.
it'll come out pretty crap.
But just like with the book thing, I realised, look, I can read a book. Sarah read that book, but it's the comprehension which is important. I realised I'm probably going to read that book once, and then I'll go back and read it again, and I'll probably chop through it a bit quicker. But like any good information, you just get a whole bunch of new understandings and concepts that come out of it, which is quite remarkable.
It is, right? Like, books have been around for thousands of years, and there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
It's just such a fascinating world to be able to jump into someone else's mind that they've spent their whole life putting
it is a connection.
100%.
Like, there is a connection going on. Like, it's perhaps not with the person themselves, but it's with some of their ideas. So that connection is happening.
Ryan Holiday says about Caesar. You can chat to him.
Yeah. Oh, right.
Like, it's amazing, right? Like, his personal journal is there for you to read and basically have a conversation with him.
Yeah, it's extraordinary.
Yeah.
To read some of those works and realise, they were written 2,500 years ago, and you've got this personal connection with this person who's long dead.
Yeah.
But it's like this, it's amazing.
Yeah.
All right, am I cooking your breakfast, Ollie? What do you like, mate?
What do I want?
15 minutes, I have to make a connection with the customers, or less than that, actually.
Get your smile gear on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can fake it, mate. No, just joking around.
You can't fake smile. It smells too good for to fake it.
See, it's the same with those dudes wearing suits. It's like a fake smile, isn't it? With this
To a certain degree.
Can't really, when the shit hits the fan, they're kind of wanting.
Yeah.
I'm going to go some eggs on sourdough toast.
Sure, mate. Yeah, we can do that. Would you like, did you want any bacon or anything like that?
No, just eggs.
Just eggs straight up?
Yeah.
Cool, mate. Do you want a bit of hollandaise on that?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, cool. Oh. Yeah.
Thanks for coming in, Ollie, and thanks for the conversation. It was awesome.
Yeah,
cheers,
love
mate.
being here, man.
Yeah.
Thanks for having me.
Talk to you again soon.